The auction room's cruel joke. The auction room buzzed with voices. It smelled of sweat, oil, and cold metal. Every seat was filled. Aliens from every corner of the city had come, hoping to find a bargain. Bright lights shone down on the stage. There a thin alien girl stood, shaking. She was small, maybe 16, her gray skin covered in old scars, her hair tangled and dirty. One of her legs looked twisted and weak, and her mismatched eyes, one blue, one gold, were wide with fear. She wore a simple, torn dress. No jewelry, no sign of a family, not even shoes. The auctioneer, a fat alien with yellow skin and gold rings on every finger, grinned and waved his hand to the crowd. Next up, the special deal of the night. He shouted, and everyone laughed, even before he finished. She can't run away, can't fight, and she won't talk back. Who'll give me a single credit for this fine, fine specimen? Some in the crowd called out jokes. Can she cook? Does she bite? She looks like she's already half dead. The laughter grew louder. The girl's hands tightened into fists, but she said nothing. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for mercy, but found only grinning faces. One alien, tall and wearing a purple robe, stood up and said, "She's not even worth feeding. I'll pay a credit just to see her thrown out." Again, the crowd laughed. Even the auctioneer wiped away a tear from his eye. Any other offers? A single credit to get rid of her. In the back of the room, a human man named Mark sat quietly. He wore plain clothes, dusty boots, and a tired face. But his eyes were sharp, watching every movement on the stage. No one else noticed him. Humans were rare in this city, and most thought them weak or strange. Mark didn't seem to care about the jokes or the girl's looks. He saw something in her that no one else did. He saw her hands, how steady they were, even though she trembled. He saw the pride in her chin, lifted just enough to show she hadn't given up. He saw the way she refused to meet the eyes of those who mocked her, as if she was trying to hold on to a secret piece of dignity. The auctioneer cleared his throat, ready to send the girl away. No one. Going once, going twice, Mark raised his hand. For a moment, no one noticed. Then, silence fell. Heads turned, curious. Mark spoke softly, but his voice carried through the hall. "I'll offer 3 credits." Gasps and mutters swept the room. The auctioneer looked surprised. 3 credits? For her? He tried to hide a smile, thinking Mark was joking. Mark's face was calm. "Yes," he said, 3 credits. Right now, the tall alien in purple snorted. "The human wants to waste his money. Let him." The auctioneer grinned and pounded his gavel. "Sold to the human. Come, pay up and take your care." As Mark walked to the stage, the girl's heart pounded so loud she thought everyone could hear it. Her hands shook, her mind spinning. Why would a human buy her? What did he want? No one had ever looked at her with anything but disgust or pity. Now, this man didn't even look afraid or angry. He just looked kind. Mark handed over the credits, and the auctioneer shoved the girl forward. "She's all yours. No returns." Mark knelt in front of the girl, meeting her eyes. "Can you walk?" he asked, gently. She nodded, but her leg hurt so badly she could barely stand. Mark saw her pain and offered his arm. She hesitated, then took it, expecting a cruel squeeze. But his grip was gentle, steady. They walked together out of the auction room, passing sneering faces and whispered insults. Stupid human. He must be desperate. Maybe he likes broken things. Mark ignored them all. Outside, the city was cold and dark, the streets empty except for a few shadows. Mark kept his pace slow, matching the girl's limping steps. He didn't rush or push her. As they reached a quiet alley, Mark stopped. He knelt again, opened his backpack, and took out a small blanket and a bottle of water. He offered both to the girl. She stared, confused. Why? Why are you helping me? She whispered. Mark smiled softly. No one else saw, but you're not broken. You're just hurt. You're safe now. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she bit her lip, afraid to believe him. In the silence, only one thought echoed in her mind. Could this really be kindness, or was it another cruel trick? The night was far from over. And for the first time, a small spark of hope flickered inside her. Even as fear still gripped her heart, the unexpected purchase, the city's shadows followed Mark and the alien girl as they left the auction house. Behind, the alleyways were silent except for the soft sound of her uneven footsteps. She tried not to lean on Mark, but the pain in her injured leg grew with every step. Still, she did not complain. She was used to pain, and even more used to hiding it. Mark led her through a maze of narrow streets, away from the crowds and lights. The deeper they went, the colder it seemed. The girl glanced at Mark every few moments, studying his face, his hands, trying to guess his purpose. She had heard terrible story slaves bought by humans, never seen again. Was he like the others, or was there a different reason? After a while, they reached a small house squeezed between two taller buildings. It was nothing like the big, fancy homes she'd seen from a distance, but it looked warm. Light glowed from behind thick curtains. Mark unlocked the door and motioned for her to enter first. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of spices and old paper. There was a little kitchen with clean dishes, a single bed with an extra blanket, and shelves lined with books and strange human things. The girl stood in the doorway, unsure if she was allowed to move. Mark gently shut the door behind them. "You can sit anywhere you like," he said quietly. She shuffled forward, careful not to touch anything. Mark put down his backpack and disappeared. Into the kitchen, the girl sat on the floor, her back against the wall. She watched Mark, every muscle tense. Ready to run if he tried anything, Mark returned with a bowl of warm soup and a slice of bread. He placed them in front of her, then stepped back. "Eat," he said softly. The girl's stomach ached with hunger, but she hesitated. "Is it poisoned?" she asked in a low voice. Mark shook his head, a sad smile on his lips. "No, I promise. It's just soup. You need strength." Still watching him, she tasted the soup. The warmth spread through her body. It was simple, just vegetables and broth, but it felt like the first real food she'd had in months. She ate slowly, not wanting to finish too soon. When she finished, Mark offered her a cup of water. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. No one had asked her name since she'd been taken. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Leary, Leary," Mark repeated, as if testing the sound. "That's a good name. Mine's Mark." She nodded, unsure what else to say. A strange silence grew between them. Not uncomfortable, just uncertain. Mark broke it by pointing to the bed. "You can rest there tonight. I'll take the chair." Leary's eyes widened in surprise. "Not going to lock me up?" Mark shook his head. "You're not a prisoner. You're free to leave if you want, but I hope you'll stay, at least until your leg heals." No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She stared at the bed, then at Mark, not believing. Freedom was a word she'd almost forgotten. Still, she didn't move from her spot on the floor. Mark sat at his small table, pulling out a notebook. He began to write, his pen scratching softly in the quiet room. Leary watched him, confused. By his calm, was this another trick? She wrapped her arms around her knees and stared at the door, listening for any sign of danger. Hours passed. The night grew colder. Leary's eyes became heavy. Finally, Mark spoke again. "You can ask me anything, Leary. I won't get angry." Swallowed, forcing herself to speak. "Why did you buy me?" Mark put down his pen and looked her in the eyes. "I've seen too many people thrown away, Leary. Too many souls treated like trash. But I don't believe anyone is worthless, not even the ones others laugh at. I saw something in you. You didn't give up, even when they mocked you. That's rare." Leary listened, trying to believe him. She wanted to trust, but trust was dangerous. It was easier to hide. That night, Mark fell asleep at the table, head resting on his arms. Leary sat awake, watching him, watching the door, caught between hope and fear. In the middle of the night, she finally stood up, took a blanket from the bed, and laid it gently over Mark's shoulders. She returned to the bed, pulled the extra blanket close, and let her eyes close for the first time in what felt like forever. Still, sleep did not come easy. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow made her heart race. But inside, a small seed of hope had taken root as the first light crept through the curtains. Leary was still awake. She had survived another night, but this time she wasn't alone. Scars beneath a surface morning in Mark's little house came quietly. The sun peeked through thin curtains, painting pale lines across the floor. Leary lay still on the bed, her eyes half open, afraid to move too fast. For the first time in months, no chains bound her, no locks snapped behind her, and no angry voices called her worthless. She sat up slowly, testing her aching leg. A sharp pain shot through her calf, making her gasp. She bit her lip, glancing around. Mark was gone from the chair, but a kettle hissed on the stove, and the smell of tea filled the room. She watched the door, half expecting the auctioneer or a cruel master to come stomping in, demanding work. But only Mark appeared, carrying a tray. He smiled at her, gentle as sunlight. "Good morning, Leary. Hungry?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. Mark set the tray beside her, a slice of bread, a boiled egg, and a cup of warm tea. Leary blinked at the simple meal she was used. 2 stale crusts, 2 eating only when allowed. She looked up at Mark, then down at her hands, not sure if she should thank him. "Eat as much as you like," Mark said, pulling up a chair. "You need your strength." She ate, careful and slow, watching him between bites. He didn't rush her, just sipped his own tea and read from a small book. The silence felt peaceful, not heavy like before. When she finished, Mark put away the tray. He knelt beside her, surprising Leary. "I need to look at your leg," he said softly. "It's hurting you, isn't it?" Leary froze, panic rising in her chest. In every place she'd been, help only meant more pain. She pulled the blanket tight around her, shaking her head. Mark waited, patient. "You can say no," he promised. "But I used to help fix injuries back on Earth. If it's infected, it could get worse." Leary hesitated. The pain throbbed. She remembered fever dreams, hot and cold, and her legs swelling until she cried alone at night. She didn't want to be helpless again. With shaking hands, she pushed up her ragged dress, revealing the wound. Mark didn't flinch or make a face. He only looked carefully. Her skin was red and swollen around an old cut, and she winced as he examined it. "It's bad, but not hopeless," he said, his voice steady. "This will sting." He pulled out a small kit, clean bandages, and a bottle of liquid. As he worked, Leary held her breath, expecting pain. But Mark's touch was gentle, and he spoke softly, explaining each step. "You're brave, you know," he said, tying the final bandage. Most grown men would faint at a wound like that. Leary let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. No one had called her brave before, not ever. She blinked away sudden tears. Afterwards, Mark offered her a small mirror. "You don't have to hide anymore," he said, his eyes kind. "Not here." She stared at her reflection, messy hair, hollow cheeks, her eyes too big for her thin face. For a moment, she saw herself as Mark did. Not broken, just hurt. Someone still alive. Later, Mark gave her a set of clean clothes, soft shirt, and pants far too big, but warmer than anything she owned. Leary changed quickly, surprised by how good clean fabric felt against her skin. She moved through the house quietly, exploring. Mark had strange things: old earth music, funny pictures, books in languages she couldn't read. On a low shelf, she found a faded photo of a human woman with laughing eyes and a small child on her shoulders. Leary traced the faces with her finger, then quickly set the photo back. Mark noticed, but didn't ask questions. "That was my family," he said. "A long time ago? They're gone now." Leary wanted to say something, but words were hard. She only nodded, feeling the same ache inside. For the rest of the day, Mark showed Leary how to make tea and toast, how to wash dishes, how to turn on the little radio for music. He never forced her, only showed and let her try. Leary felt strange safe, but not fully trusting. Each kindness made her both happy and scared. She wanted to believe, but old fears whispered warnings. No one gives something for nothing. That evening, as the sun slipped away, Mark sat with her at the table. "You're welcome here, Leary," he said. "You don't owe me anything. Rest, heal, and if you want, I'll teach you whatever you'd like." Leary stared at him, unsure if she should believe. She wanted to, more than anything. But as night fell, she checked the doors and windows again and again, making sure nothing and no one could come in. In the dark, she whispered her name to herself, a promise to remember who she was before the laughter, before the pain. For the first time, she hoped that maybe, just maybe, she could belong somewhere. But outside, in the city's twisted streets, a rumor was spreading the human had bought the worthless one. Not everyone was happy about it. The rumor spread. Word travels fast in the city, especially in places where hope is rare and gossip is cheap. The story of the human who bought the worthless alien girl rolled through back alleys, across busy market stalls, and into the smoky rooms where city outcasts gathered each night. Some told the story with laughter, others with cold suspicion. At first, Mark didn't notice. He went about his days quietly, caring for Leary and tending his small home. The routine was gentle and slow. Mark would cook breakfast, teach Leary little things about living among humans, and fix anything broken in the house. Leary started to move more freely, no longer flinching at every sound. She even hummed sometimes as she worked, her voice soft and careful, like she was afraid the world might punish her for joy. But outside, trouble brewed. Neighbors peered through windows, whispering when Mark and Leary passed by. Some avoided them, others stared too long. One morning, a grumpy alien named Varn blocked their path on the way to the market. "You really keeping that one?" Varn asked Mark, nodding at Leary as if she were a thing and not a person. "Heard you paid credits for her. Waste of money if you ask me. I'd keep my doors locked. Filthy ones like her, they bring bad luck." Mark's eyes narrowed, but his voice stayed calm. "She's not that one. Her name is Leary, and I decide who's welcome in my home." Varn spat on the ground, shaking his head. "Don't say I didn't warn you. Nothing good comes from picking up trash." Leary shrank behind Mark, her old fears stirring again. Mark placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, leading her away without another word. At the market, Leary noticed more eyes on her than usual. Some vendors turned their backs. Others whispered to each other as she passed. A few brave children pointed, giggling and calling her Limpy behind their hands. Leary gripped the shopping bag tight, her cheeks burning with shame. Mark tried to ignore it, but he couldn't hide his anger. As they left the market, he spoke softly. "People are afraid of what they don't understand, Leary. Give them time. Sometimes kindness takes patience." But outside kindness, there was another thread: jealousy. Some who had mocked Leary at the auction now wondered if they had missed something valuable. Why would a human pay for her? Was there a secret worth? More than a few credits. Envy turned into rumor stories about curses, dangerous diseases, and hidden riches. Each version became more wild as it spread. That night, someone threw a stone at Mark's house. It shattered a window and scattered glass across the kitchen floor. Leary jumped, eyes wide, heart racing. Mark checked outside, but the alley was empty. He cleaned the mess and taped cardboard over the window. "It's just a rock," he said gently. "Nothing we can't fix." But Leary saw the worry in his eyes. She tried to be helpful, cleaning and making the house neat. She even drew little pictures on scrap paper, leaving them for Mark to feed: a cat, a flower, a smiling sun. Mark taped them to the wall above his bed, and each morning he would thank her. One evening, as rain tapped against the roof, Mark sat by the fire with Leary. He handed her a battered book. "Would you like to learn to read?" he asked. Leary's eyes widened. She had always wanted to read, but no one ever bothered to teach her. She nodded, hope shining in her mismatched eyes. They started with simple words: cat, dog, sun. Mark sounded out each letter, patient and calm, letting Leary try again and again until she smiled with pride at getting it right. The house filled with new energy. The slow magic of learning bringing laughter and light. But outside, not everyone wanted to see Leary happy. The neighbors' warnings grew sharper. Some aliens gathered in corners at night, whispering about what to do. Should they chase the human away? Should they force him to give up the girl? Anger and fear mixed with jealousy. And the city's shadows stretched longer each night. One day, while Mark was gone fixing a neighbor's door, two strangers knocked at Leary's window. She peeked through the curtain, her heart racing. Strangers looked mean, their faces hidden by hoods. "Hey, worthless," one called. "You think you're safe with that human? He'll get tired of you soon. Then what? You'll come crawling back, begging for scraps." Leary didn't answer, her hands shaking. She slid to the floor, hiding until Mark returned. That evening, Mark found her curled up, tears on her cheeks. He sat beside her and listened as she told him everything. He promised, "As long as you're here, no one will hurt you. I'm not afraid." Leary wanted to believe him, but the city felt smaller, colder, and more dangerous than before. Still, she clung to Mark's words, trying to trust in a world that had never given her a reason. But outside, the city waited, and the next test of courage was coming, one that would force both Mark and Leary to prove how strong hope could really be. Worth more than gold, the days grew longer, and life inside Mark's house slowly changed. Leary still walked with a limp, but now her steps were steadier. Her smile, once hidden, showed more often, like a shy sun peeking out from behind clouds. The wound on her leg was healing, thanks to Mark's careful tending and gentle words. But the true healing happened somewhere deeper, somewhere that couldn't be touched with bandages. Mark gave Leary small tasks each day. She learned how to make tea, sweep the floor, and watered the little garden out back. She watched as Mark fixed broken gadgets for the neighbors, and sometimes even helped, her fingers quick and clever. He was patient, letting her try, showing her how things fit together, never angry when she made mistakes. Leary had never been allowed to learn before. Every new skill was a tiny victory, a piece of herself she was slowly discovering. One morning, Mark woke coughing and shivering. He tried to hide it, but Leary noticed. His hands trembled as he poured tea. His forehead was hot, and he barely touched his food. Leary's old fear returned, fear of losing the only person who had ever been kind to her. She searched the cupboards for medicine, remembering the herbs her mother had used long ago. In a corner, she found a jar of dried leaves and roots. She boiled water, crushed the herbs, and made a strong, bitter tea. Mark sipped it, wincing at the taste, but Leary urged him to finish. All day. She watched over him, placing cool cloths on his forehead and whispering soft words she barely remembered from her childhood. Mark slept, tossing and turning, sometimes calling names Leary didn't know. She sat by his side, holding his hand, not letting go, even when the night grew deep and lonely. News of Mark's sickness spread in the neighborhood. Some neighbors whispered that the cursed girl had brought bad luck. Others watched with pity, but no one came to help. Only Leary stayed, refusing to leave his side. On the third day, Mark's fever broke. He woke, weak but smiling, to find Leary asleep at the foot of his bed, her head resting on her folded arms. When she woke, he whispered, "You saved me, Leary. Thank you." She blushed, embarrassed but proud. "You took care of me," she said simply. "It's only fair." After that, something shifted between them. Mark started to rely on Leary, letting her handle more in the house. He showed her how to fix a broken lamp, and together they made the lights glow brighter than ever before. Leary learned to cook a simple stew, and Mark praised her for every meal, no matter how plain. Outside, a few neighbors noticed the change. They saw Leary carrying groceries, her head held higher. They saw her tending the garden, coaxing green shoots from the dirt. Some began to nod at her in greeting, surprised by her gentle smile. Others, however, remained cold, clinging to old rumors. One afternoon, a tall alien in the purple robe, the same one who had mocked Leary at the auction, approached Mark's house. He watched as Leary knelt in the garden, her hands in the earth. "You," he sneered, "the human's pet. Are you proud of your new life?" Leary stood, wiping her hands on her dress. She didn't look away. "I'm not a pet. I help here. I learn." The alien laughed, but something in Leary's eyes made him pause. He couldn't see fear there any more, only quiet strength. Mark came outside, standing beside Leary. "Is there something you need?" he asked firmly. The alien scowled. "Just making sure you know what you're doing, human. Don't expect help if things go wrong." Mark smiled, calm and sure. "I don't need help from those who laugh at others' pain. Leary is worth more than gold to me." The alien huffed and left, his pride stung by Mark's words. Leary watched him go, her heart beating with new confidence. For the first time, she felt proud not just of what she had survived, but of what she was becoming. Later that night, Mark showed Leary how to repair a small music box. They worked side by side, laughing as the tune finally played, filling the house with sweet notes. Leary closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her. For a moment, she forgot every cruel word, every hurtful look. All that remained was hope stronger than fear. But outside, the city still whispered, and not everyone had changed their minds. Jealousy still simmered. Leary knew that trouble could come again at any time. But now, she had something to fight for, and someone who believed she was worth everything. The night of the break-in, city's mood was changing. The kindness Mark and Leary found inside their little home was rare, maybe too rare for some people's liking. Dark whispers swirled among the alleys. That girl's no good. The humans making everyone look like fools. She'll bring nothing but trouble. Leary tried not to listen, but the voices found their way through cracks in the walls and windows. Still, she kept working, kept learning. And the house felt more like a real home every day. But trouble was close, waiting for a chance to break the peace. One evening, clouds crowded the sky, turning everything gray and heavy. Mark fixed a leak in the roof while Leary set the table for supper. As the first drops of rain hit the glass, Mark smiled. "Storm's coming, good night for stories." They ate together, Leary asking questions about Earth, about green fields. blue oceans, and families who stayed together. Mark told stories with gentle laughter, painting bright memories against the dark storm outside. But as night deepened, the storm grew wild. The wind howled, rattling the doors. The power flickered, shadows dancing along the walls. Mark checked the locks, just in case, and reassured Leary, "It's only wind. Nothing can get in." But even Mark's words couldn't keep out the trouble. That night, later, as Mark slept in his chair, Leary tidied the kitchen. She heard a strange noise, soft at first, then sharper, like glass breaking. Her heart jumped. She crept to the window and peeked through a crack in the curtain. In the alley below, 3 shapes moved in the rain. Their faces were hidden under hoods, but Leary recognized the tall alien in purple from the Oxenand. 2 others, bigger and meaner. Fear tightened Leary's chest. She knew what happened to girls like her when angry people came in the night. Mark was still asleep, unaware of the danger. A heavy fist slammed against the back door. "Open up, human. We know you're hiding her. Bring the cursed one out." Leary's hands shook, but she forced herself to think. She locked the kitchen door and hurried to Mark, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up. Someone's here." Mark came. Awake quickly, he listened, then moved to the front window. Another voice outside. "We warned you, human. You want to live here, you follow our rules." Mark whispered Leary, "Hide in the pantry. If they get in, don't come out until it's safe." But Leary shook her head, her eyes fierce. "No, I won't hide, not this time." Mark tried to protest, but Leary was already moving. She grabbed a heavy pan from the stove and crept to the shadows near the door. The pounding grew louder, shaking the whole house. Glass shattered in the back, someone was breaking in. Mark braced himself at the front door as it burst open. Rain swept in, along with the 3 intruders. The tall alien in purple led the way, sneering. "Move aside, human. We just want the girl. She doesn't belong here." Mark stood firm, but one of the thugs shoved him hard. Leary jumped from the shadows, swinging the pan with all her strength. It crashed into the purple alien's arm, making him howl. The other 2 lunged at her, but she dodged, using her small size to slip away. Mark grabbed a chair and blocked the hallway, yelling, "Leave us alone. She's done nothing to you." The thugs ignored him, determined to get Leary. One caught her by the arm, twisting it hard. Pain shot through her, but she bit back a scream and kicked at his knee. He lost his balance, falling with a crash. Mark tackled the 3rd intruder, both of them crashing into the kitchen table. The fight was messy, full of shouts, grunts, and breaking furniture. But Leary and Mark fought together, side by side, refusing to give up. Finally, with one last push, they forced the intruders out the back door and slammed it shut, locking it tight. The thugs cursed from outside, promising to come back. But the rain and darkness finally chased them away. The house was a mess, chairs broken, dishes smashed, blood on Mark's knuckles. Leary's arm ached, but she helped Mark patch his hand and fix what they could. Their breathing was ragged, but neither spoke for a while. At last, Mark said softly, "I'm sorry, Leary. I brought this trouble to you." Leary shook her head, tears shining in her eyes. "No, you gave me a home. I'm not afraid anymore. I won't let anyone take that from us." Together, they cleaned the mess, locking every door and window tight. Outside, the storm slowly faded. But inside, something stronger than fear had grown. Leary realized she wasn't powerless anymore, not when she stood with someone who believed in her. But they both knew the city wouldn't forget so easily. The next challenge would be harder, and the world would be watching. A soul revealed the city woke to news of the break-in. Whispers filled the air like morning fog. Some said the human was dead. others that the cursed alien girl had destroyed the attackers with strange magic. No one really knew the truth, but everyone wanted to find out. Inside Mark's small house, sunlight crept over the chaos left by the night. Broken chairs, smashed plates, muddy footprints, and bloodstains evidence of the fight was everywhere. But in the middle of the mess, Mark and Leary worked side by side, cleaning and fixing, both bruised but unbroken by midday. Word spread that the auctioneer, the same who once sold Leary, had come begging for help. His daughter, a young alien, girl with soft blue skin and big sad eyes, was very sick. The best healers had given up. The auctioneer, desperate and ashamed, knocked on Mark's door, head bowed. Mark was surprised. Leary, even more so. The auctioneer could barely look at Leary. "I know I've done wrong by you," he stammered, "but my daughter, she's dying. Please, help me. They say you have strange gifts. Maybe you know something the rest of us don't." For a long moment, Leary just stared at him. Old pain and fear twisted in her heart. She remembered his jokes, his laughter at her misery, how he'd sold her like she was nothing. But now, he looked at her with real tears. She saw the same fear in his eyes she'd once felt herself. Mark waited, letting Leary decide. Slowly, Leary nodded. "I'll help," she said softly. "Not for you, but for your daughter. No child should suffer." They hurried to the auctioneer's house, where the sick girl lay burning with fever, shivering under thin blankets. The room was filled with the smell of sickness and worry. Leary asked for hot water, fresh towels, and certain herbs, memories of her own mother guiding her hands. For hours, Leary worked. She cooled the girl's head, cleaned her wounds, and made her drink a bitter herbal tea. Mark sat nearby, giving quiet encouragement, his presence steady and calm. The auctioneer watched, hope and regret mixed in his eyes. Outside, a crowd began to gather. Neighbors and strangers alike, drawn by curiosity and guilt, watched through the windows. Some whispered that Leary would curse the child. Others said she was an angel in disguise. Even the tall alien in purple stood at the edge of the crowd, his usual sneer replaced with uneasy respect. By evening, the fever broke. The little girl opened her eyes, weak but alive. The auctioneer wept, falling to his knees. "Thank you. I was wrong. She's no curse, she's a blessing." Word spread faster than fire. The girl no one wanted, the one mocked and called worthless, had saved a life. People who had once thrown stones now came with thanks and shy gifts, bread, fruit, even flowers from their small gardens. Leary felt shy, almost lost among so many kind faces. She wasn't used to smiles, but slowly she learned to return them. Mark stood by her side, pride shining in his eyes. "You see, Leary, the world can change. Sometimes it just takes one brave soul." That night, the same neighbors who had once whispered behind closed doors gathered to repair Mark's broken windows and clean the yard. Even Varn, the grumpy alien, brought fresh paint for the fence. Later, Mark and Leary sat together under the stars in their quiet garden. The air was cool, the city strangely peaceful. Leary looked at her hands, still rough, still bearing scars, but now they were hands that healed, not just survived. She turned to Mark. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice soft and full of wonder. Mark smiled gently. "Because you were never worthless, Leary. I just saw what everyone else refused to see, a precious soul. And you've proved it. Not just to me, but to the whole city." Leary felt warmth rise inside her, brighter than any sun. For the first time, she believed she was truly free, not because she belonged to someone, but because she finally belonged to herself. As the moon rose, Leary whispered a quiet promise to the night. "No more running. No more hiding. I am not less. I am enough." In the city that once laughed at her price, people now told the story of the human and the alien. Girl, a story not of pity or shame, but of courage, kindness, and hope. And in a little house filled with laughter, music, and new dreams, Mark and Leary proved that sometimes a single act of belief can change everything.